Hey, how's it going everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula. I hope you're having a good day and welcome to today's Pokemon Go discussion video. Alright, so for today's video, we gotta talk about Dynamax battles because this new feature is drawing a lot of backlash from the Pokemon Go community simply because it feels like Niantic completely botched the release of this new feature. And I really do think that for a lot of the backlash, I totally understand it, and I do agree with it as well. There's just a lot of potential that this new feature had with Pokemon Go, and Niantic did not meet any of it. So what is the reason for the backlash? Well, simply put, when it comes to Dynamax battles, there just seemingly is no point to this feature when it comes to the overall scope of Pokemon Go. You cannot use Dynamax Pokemon in PvP or raid battles. It's basically its own thing. You catch Dynamax Pokemon by collecting those max particles, and then you use those Pokemon that you caught to battle Dynamax battles, and then you can catch more Dynamax Pokemon in that way. And I really do think that for what it's worth, it's basically a side activity for Pokemon that really have no impact on any other area of Pokemon Go. And I think this is why a lot of players are very frustrated with how Niantic implemented this new feature. I mean, much like with everything else Niantic has released over the past several months, it's basically in a bare bones state that Niantic continues to develop over time. It's very similar to routes and party play. These features were not necessarily that exciting when they first released, but in their current state, they're in a much better place where you're actually going to get something out of it if you actually engage with these features. And I feel like the same can be said for Dynamax Pokemon. I do think that this feature is going to see continued development, and they might even release certain Pokemon specifically through this feature. I mean, a lot of players out there are speculating that Pokemon like Eternatus are going to be available through Dynamax battles, and that means you will need a robust collection of Dynamax Pokemon in order to get Eternatus. That is definitely a possibility. But let's be real, that's just speculation. We really do not know how Niantic is going to continue to develop Dynamax Pokemon. I mean, it really had a lot of potential, and I'm really disappointed that Niantic released it in such a state. I mean, you're really hard-pressed to find any reason to actually engage with this new feature. Collecting Dynamax Pokemon does nothing for your account. You don't get anything out of it. You don't even get anything for PvP. I really feel like Niantic dropped the ball here. In my honest opinion, what they should have done is that they should have had exclusive Pokemon that you could get from Dynamax battles right off the bat, so that players would actually have some sort of incentive to actually engage with this feature. And even so, maybe they could have had it where it's going to work similar to Mega Evolutions, where you're going to have a temporary power-up to any of your Pokemon that can Dynamax, and you would engage with Power Spots and Dynamax battles in order to get the resources for that specific mechanic. I think that would have gone over a lot better, and players would have definitely engaged with Dynamax battles even more. Since Niantic is not communicating their intentions with this new feature or providing any kind of roadmap, people just really do not know what the point is for this feature. I mean, it would have been a completely different story if Niantic actually gave us some information regarding the future of this feature, because yeah, Dynamax Pokemon as of right now are completely useless. They're only useful for other Dynamax content, and I don't necessarily feel like a lot of players actually care about that because there's not even any kind of reward structure that will help players in other areas of the game. Like, imagine if they had Dynamax battles as an additional source for getting Pokecoins, and maybe they could have it as a very solid source for Rare Candy XL, considering that those are essentially bigger versions of regular rare candies, so it would have made sense thematically. But Niantic did not do any of that, and instead, they made this kind of like its own side quest, and to be honest with you, I don't think that's something that would have appealed to any Pokemon Go player. Maybe there's some people out there who do actually care about it, but really, there's no effect on getting Dynamax Pokemon to your account, so it's going to be really difficult to get the masses on board with this new feature, and that's definitely evident with how people are reacting on social media as well as within local communities. It's really a dead feature on arrival, and that's a real shame. So where does that leave us? Where do we go from here? Well, to be honest with you, we're kind of in a wait and see moment here with Dynamax content. Like, there is a lot of potential here, don't get me wrong. I do think that they could do some really cool things with Dynamax content. It just really isn't there right now at launch, and it just seems like the same old story when it comes to Niantic and new features. They release stuff very prematurely, and then they don't necessarily do much with communication, and then eventually they get us a much better version of that new feature where players will actually start getting on board. But I really prefer if Niantic were to release new features with a much better state so that players get really excited initially and those new features become mainstays within Pokemon Go. But it just seems like Niantic never goes that direction, and I really do think Pokemon Go could be a much better game than it currently is, because whenever Niantic releases new features, it's a great opportunity to inject a lot of hype into this game, but they just simply do not do that. There were very few instances where Niantic actually created a lot of positive buzz around a new feature, and it's mainly because of gameplay implications. Like if you think about most recently with the fusions for Necrozma, a lot of players were on board with that new feature mainly because there was gameplay implications behind having a fused Necrozma. If you were to fuse Necrozma with either Solgaleo or Lunala, you would have yourself one of the most powerful Pokemon in the game, and that definitely created a lot of excitement. And the same can be said for Mega Evolutions, because when that was first released, a lot of players were excited at the prospects of using Mega Evolutions in raids because of just how powerful they are. And then also most recently with the adventure effects with Origin Form Palkia and Origin Form Dialga. That created some positive buzz because there were gameplay implications behind that new feature. These are some of the things that Niantic needs to think about when they release new stuff, because if players are not going to get some sort of power spike or some sort of advantage in gameplay with these new features, then they're just simply not going to care. That's kind of the hard reality behind everything that Niantic releases. It really comes down to that. Just think about new Pokemon releases. If there's no implications behind PvP or raids, then players are just simply not going to care. But once those Pokemon have some sort of relevance in any of those game modes, then that is when players will start caring about those new Pokemon. That's just the nature of how this game is when it comes to the player base. And if Niantic is not cognizant of that, then a lot of these new features are going to be dead on arrival. So yeah, these are just some of my thoughts regarding this new Dynamax feature. Again, I thought there was a lot of potential for this to be something really cool for Pokemon Go, but in its current state, it really does leave a lot to be desired. So yeah, in any case, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know your thoughts regarding this new Dynamax feature down below. Am I completely off base here? Is this something that is actually really good for Pokemon Go? I would really like to know the reasons why. If that is you, then make sure you share your thoughts in the comments below so that we could have a great discussion. And thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. If you ended up enjoying it, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here. And also don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a shout out to all my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support the Jinsula channel, then the best way you could do so is by joining my Patreon. You can go to it in the links in the description below. And if you become a paid Patreon member, you get a permanent spot on my in-game Pokemon Go friends list. So when it comes to stuff like remote raids and the friendship system, if you want to play Pokemon Go with me, then do consider joining my Patreon. And if you want to support my channel in a different way, you could do so by following me on social media. My handle is @Jinsula. I'm on the platforms that you see on screen. Make sure you go over there and give me a follow. And that's going to be it for this video. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.